You're listening to the Bleav in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
And we welcome you to another edition of Bleav in Giants, presented by FanDuel. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. Super Bowl is in the books, Super Bowl 60. And defense rules the day, as most Super Bowl champions do. And you got to have offense. I mean, it's not like you could just win with you have to score points, but you can play complementary football. You can punt more than you might want to. You can kick field goals when you know you got a killer defense, Carl. And we certainly saw that on display on Super Bowl Sunday.
We did. And, you know, we always talk about defense wins championships. It's tried, tested, and true. But you know the other thing that wins championships is the run game. You know, running is sexy again. You know, everybody just fell in love with, you know, the passing prowess of quarterbacks, and it's a passing league. It's a passing league until it's not, right? It's a passing league until your quarterback is turning the ball over. It's a passing league until you can't protect the quarterback. But, you know, the great stabilizer, and it's been that way for Sam Darnold, and for the most part, for the New England offense as well, and Drake May, is a running game. You know, you take the ball out of the quarterback's hand, and you run it, and it's sexy again. I think.
Well, it was sexy with the Eagles the year before, and it was sexy with the Chiefs the year before that.
Right, but people keep talking, well, the quarterback this and the quarterback, well, running is sexy, folks. And that's what wins you championships too. When you can pass the ball to stay on schedule, but run the ball to really impact the game. Kenneth Walker, two biggest runs, it really made the difference in the game, because New England's defense, they were, you know, not even bending but don't break. They were pretty stiff, or should I say, as Paul Dottino say, they were pretty stout, you know, for a lot of the game. And all of a sudden, Walker breaks two, a 35-yarder and a 30-yarder, and it changed field position, because I think New England was content with the playing the field position game as well, and say, okay, we'll punt, kick field goals, punt, kick field goals. But they offensively, the Patriots never had an opportunity to really get good field position, and they didn't hit a play until probably the fourth quarter downfield.
Right, and you know, it reminded me of Philadelphia's defense last year against the Chiefs. It at times last year, it looked like the Eagles had 14 defensive players on the field, and that's what it looked like on Sunday. At times, it looked like there were 14 players on the field. No matter what New England tried, there seemed to be a defender. I mean, they even tried to surprise them with a wheel route, and it was like Seattle had a guy back there like, no, we know this is coming. Sorry, we already got this covered. The other thing that was interesting, Carl, is you know, you talk about the quarterbacks, and the quarterbacks, rightfully so, get a lot of play. And you know, Sam Darnold didn't turn it over. Drake May turned it over. That becomes the difference in these games. The other thing is we talk about receivers, right? And we live in a world of fantasy. We live in a world of online gambling, and we live in a world of numbers. But, you know, I'm not saying he was going to win the game MVP or anything, but if you go back and you watch the coaches' tape from Super Bowl 60 and you pay attention, Cooper Kupp was absolutely instrumental in Seattle because of his blocking. They had him doing a lot of what he did with the Rams for all those years, where he comes crashing in and he's digging out a safety. He's taking on a linebacker, and a lot of those runs that Walker had where he was able to be patient, and then break it out. It's because Cooper Kupp, a wide receiver, was cleaning people out. So again, it's we talk about all the numbers, but it's the little things. It's the things that don't have a stat attached to it that can be the difference in these Super Bowls.
Yeah, those are the unsung hero plays. Those are, you got to go get some dirt under your nails, and you might have to use your hands on this other than to catch a football type plays. And that is, like you said, that is the difference in their success. I mean, he might have went down there 10, 12 times in the game and probably was successful on 7 or 8 of them. But on 2 of them, he breaks it for 30 yards. That's the gratifying part about a receiver blocking, to watch the running back break out and hit it for 30 or hit it for 20, hit it for 15. Then you feel like, all right, yeah, I contributed. I can block. I'm not just a receiver. Yeah, but it's, the when you watch both of these teams, you realize with proper coaching, proper preparation, obviously we're talking about the best 2 teams in football. So anything that I say about the Patriots is not to disparage them other than just their game performance, because they are the best in the AFC. But when you get to that level, your weakness gets exposed at an even more elite level, right? They had problems on the left side of their offensive line all year. They were able to get by with it. You face a team in Seattle that can get to you with 4 players. And that's why your quarterback his timing was off, because they were very disciplined, meaning Seattle, in their zone defense. They understood their assignments. They were where they were supposed to be. And they could get to you with 4 guys. They're rushing 4 on 5 and sometimes 4 on 6, and they could get to you, and the quarterback couldn't have success. That is the difference when you have a defensive front, and I want to say the proper planning for your defensive front. They have 4 guys. Any one of them can win one-on-one. If you double one, then the other 3 are going to beat somebody one-on-one. And I think they take that challenge every week, knowing that, hey, we're going to be hard to block. It's just a matter of which one of us they want to commit to, and the rest of us are going to eat. Or if they commit the wrong people to try to double team us, we're all going to eat. And that's when I look at this giant defensive front and some of the things that they can do, some of the actions that they can take, putting those guys in different actions together, I get excited about it. But, watching Seattle, they put the work in. They're committed to it. And it's easy as fans, and I'm speaking from a fan perspective here, to really imagine what it could be like with the talent that you have. But it won't happen unless they commit at that level. Beautiful part about the beautiful part that I like about what I'm seeing with these coaching hires is they got a lot of coaches that can develop players. These are experienced coaches, and we'll spend some time next week when I'm off the road to really talk about the impact of some of these coaches and where they've been and the players that they've coached. But Coach Harbaugh is surrounding these players with coaches that are going to develop them. And I think that should be the jump. Not just coaches that are all coaching their positions, but they're developing their positions. They're teaching their positions, and we should see an appreciable jump in the performance of some guys. And I look at some projections on social where, there's a guy that the coach likes and maybe they'll get rid of this guy, right? Oh, Theo Johnson has drop problems, so maybe they want to develop him. That's what they have all these coaches for. So a player like Theo Johnson is not a guy that you look at and say, I can exchange him with, a veteran. He's got upside. They develop upside.
Yeah.
That's why you draft guys, right? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I think you're right. And he's putting together a staff of veteran people that have track records, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as developing players and guys that have experience in the league. And for any of us to sit here and kind of say, well, this guy's not going to be a fit. That guy's they're going to have to this, that, whatever. Like, we don't know. I think as fans, you got to go into this eyes wide open. Everybody got so excited about the potential of Harbaugh once he was fired in Baltimore, and that, the Giants have to go get him at all costs. He's the number one target. So they got him.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to trust upon his 18-year resume and say, okay, I mean, he didn't win all those games over 18 years by putting bad staffs together.
Right.
But for any of us to sit here and say, well, I can't believe he hired that guy. Like, like the O-line coach that he hired, that comes from that they hired from Cleveland, Mike Bloomgren. So I saw a lot of people, that Cleveland offensive line was horrific, and it was this, it was that. I mean, he was only there for 1 year because he was the head coach at Rice for 7 years or whatever. He spent some time with the Jets. He's been in the league, and Harbaugh likes him. And, it goes in conjunction with who your OC is. They added Greg Roman to this staff.
Right.
According to reports that we're reading right now as we're taping this show, Brian Callahan, the former head coach of the Tennessee Titans, is being hired by John Harbaugh to be part of his offensive staff. He's going to be the quarterback's coach and the passing game coordinator. So, between Nagy's experience, Roman's experience, familiarity with Roman and Harbaugh, and now you throw in Brian Callahan, who, hey, look, Callahan was part of the offensive staff for the 2013 Broncos that broke the 07 Patriots, every offensive record that Patriot team had set. He was an offensive assistant with Denver in Super Bowl 50 when they beat the Carolina Panthers in Peyton Manning's last year there. And he was the offensive coordinator for Joe Burrow when Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, he is putting together a staff of people with legitimate resumes. And he basically, between Nagy, Roman, and now Brian Callahan, you have created an offensive think tank for your quarterback and what you want to do moving forward offensively.
And, the thing about that, when people talk about names that they know nothing about other than, he coached this team and this team was horrible. He coached that team and that team was horrible. They're not the head coach. This is all part of John Harbaugh's infrastructure. They're all going to have an edict that they have to follow. He knows the type of team he wants. He hired the type of coaches that can get them the type of team he wants. Also, if players have talent on this team, don't assume that because the shiny object that's a free agent is going to come in and they're going to replace guys like that. These guys are going to have a clean slate. Like I said before, it's going to be hard for some of these guys, but I think they're going to. I'm not hard. Yes, it will be hard, but it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system. But I Bleav they're going to all embrace it at some point really fast, because if they truly want to win and they want to be coached to win and they need direction, they're going to be sponges. And that talent that we see in some guys that's totally inconsistent will now start to rise. I know, and I've been told that Denard Wilson, he takes no shit. He's going to be demanding. And players that want to be coached, his staff is going to coach them. He's going to develop them. And they're going to have a plan. And they're going to embrace it. It'll be tough a little bit, right? But I believe they got enough character within that, their personnel, because the thing is, Bob, a lot of these kids come from big programs. A lot of these kids come from programs that were very demanding. Now, you matriculate beyond some of these guys were superstars, so they kind of had their own way in some programs, but there was still a structure that was conducive to winning. And I think you're going to see that with these players. So, if you have a guy like Theo Johnson, who's uber talented, they're going to develop him. You know why? Because he's on a rookie contract. And why pay, $7 million, $8 million, $10 million to a tight end who's older when you can get as good, if not better, production? Listen, the one player that I'm intrigued by is, and he's put himself in a great position, is Jermaine Illuminor. He's a guy who's earned the right to get another big paycheck. He's got familiarity with Coach Harbaugh, but listen, again, they drafted Marcus Bowe. They're going to develop Marcus Bowe. Do they think, and they won't find out where Marcus Bowe is. I'm sure they're going to dig through all the tape and training camp and all that stuff, but they're going to say, I think we can go with him. We can develop him. He's had some game experience and we like what we see. Jermaine would be a great stalwart on this Giants offensive line. He's been a great Giant. When he was in there, he showed great leadership. But he's in a kind of in a catbird seat. I don't think he's going to be able to hold the Giants hostage, but he's earned the right to get another free agent paycheck, and it's going to pay off for him one way or the other. But young players that were drafted, they have to develop. They have to get their shot. And so as you look at your roster, you're probably looking at it differently than these coaches are. A lot of these kids are going to have a clean slate. A lot of these coaches are going to get in here and going to look at film, and they're going to go to Coach Harbaugh and say, oh, I could develop him. I see exactly what we need to do here. Or they'll go to Joe Shane. And Joe, what's the deal with X, Y, and Z? Is he motivated? Does he want to play? Can we coach him? And Joe would probably say yeah or no to some of the guys, right?
I think in that case, though, Carl, they ain't going to Joe Shane to ask any of that. They're going to push the buttons on those people to see how they respond.
Well, sure. They're going to gather the information, but they're going to push buttons. Like you said, they're going to find out what you like. And I'll tell you, the one guy who's going to surprise a lot of people is Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton wants to be coached hard. He wants to be in structure that's disciplined. He knows he's got work to do. I don't know what it is that they're going to do with him and his salary, but he will be a guy that will embrace what this team is about now. This is what he lived for, this type of structure. He will be that leader of the pack.
He's always been, he's always been a hard worker. Like, the one thing you can never say about Darius Slayton is effort, work, accountability, all of that stuff. That is it. That's a given with him. We know what he does off the field. But we also know about his leadership and all that stuff on the field. The bottom line with him might just be, he's not necessarily what you need him to be. In other words, everybody has levels in the NFL, right?
Sure.
And I think, everybody kind of hits their certain spots. So, hey, leadership is one thing. That's good. Productivity is most important.
Mm-hmm.
And they will make these determinations, right? Like,
Sure.
they're going to, but like when you talk about being willing to accept, it's going to be hard for a handful of players on the team. Well, at the end of the day, right, what's the old saying? Like, the only reason why I'm here, meaning Harbaugh, is because you guys have won a whopping 13 games over the last 3 seasons. I win 13 games in a year, and I got a track record of doing that. So I don't care what you think. Like, I don't care if you're going to resist, here's the door, because we don't need this. And the one little difference between this group and the Coughlin group, right? Remember when Coughlin came in and he cracked the whip and all that other stuff? Well, he was met with some resistance from some, but here's the reason why. Because there were guys on his team that he inherited that were part of that 2002 team that could have easily gone to a Super Bowl and won it, but they collapsed in San Francisco. There were core members of his team that were part of the 2000 NFC champion New York Giants that went to a Super Bowl. Fast forward to now, so you could see there could be some veteran guys that maybe not buying in. They've had their own successes team-wise, individually. So there's that push and pull and push and pull. Because remember, again, Coughlin came in 2004. 2003 was the abject disaster. But 2002, they were one of the best teams in the NFC.
Sure.
In this case, what have you done? Any of you who are in this locker room right now,
right?
You're hanging your hat. You're hanging your hat on one road playoff win in 2022.
Right.
Get out of here. I've been to a Super Bowl. I've won a Super Bowl. I've been a perennial. I've won all these division titles. Take that to the trash. Like,
right.
Here's what we're doing. And if there's blowback from any of you, hasta la vista. We'll get somebody else in here.
Yeah, I suspect that there won't be much of that. I think, again, it's going to be tough. Change is always tough, especially when you're bad.
We like tough.
Yes. But it's going to build the type of character that's necessary to get you to the playoffs, the type of character that won't let you wilt under pressure and make mistakes under pressure. That's the type of tough he's going to put in place. His staff is going to put in place. But the beautiful part is there are guys that are going to have a clean slate, right?
Everybody deserves a clean slate.
Right. And listen, like I said, I'd be greatly disappointed if Deonte Banks descended into a glorified kick returner. There's just way too much there, right? And I am going to go out on a limb. If he's on this team, he's going to be a highly productive player next year.
Ooh, predictions.
Yeah, he's going to be a highly productive player next. If he's on the team, which he will be contractually, he will be a highly productive player. Jaylen Hyatt, we haven't mentioned him all year, all offseason. Clean slate. Fast guy. We'll see. Like, this is a whole new voice, a great opportunity for him. We'll see. Like, the cupboard isn't bare, but you don't know what the ingredients are right now. What can you cook with these ingredients? Can you add a little seasoning to make this a better dish? And we're going to find out. But I'm excited that when I look at this coaching staff, and here's the other thing too, folks, outside of Greg Roman, because Greg Roman's been an offensive coordinator in several places. He's been in San Francisco. But there are a lot of these names that we apply recency bias to when you didn't know anything about a lot of these guys until a year ago, right? Or there were big names within the Baltimore Ravens that you heard of after they became big names. But what did you know about them as a tight ends coach before they became an offensive coordinator, right? Or what did you know about them as an assistant offensive line coach or as a college coach before they became an offensive line coach in Cleveland, right? These are all things you got to give them a chance because not give them a chance. You got to give yourself a chance because a year ago, 2 seasons ago, we weren't as high on Carmen Priscillo as you were this year. He was a folk hero this year. Now, he had a reputation of being an offensive line coach, but they weren't that good of an offensive line the year before. John Michael Schmitz was still struggling. Now he leaves. They had one of their best years in a very, very long time. And you're like, oh, how did you let him walk out the door? Well, because Coach Harbaugh has similar coaches that have done it equally and consistently as good. I'm a huge Carmen Priscillo fan. I would have loved to see him stay because of the synergy of what he built. But the synergy is also amongst the players. Once he got them working together, now another guy can come in and coach him, whatever that philosophy will be. It's going to be physical, but these guys are working together now. They know how to work together. They understand concepts, something they didn't know for a very long time. That's going to be important, like understanding that this staff is put together not by a guy pulling names out of hats. He's been in this league a long time. He's prepared against guys. He's coached with guys. He's helped his guys prepare. I'm going to give him every benefit of his resume possible. He's going to have to do a lot to burn that resume up by picking. If you don't like a coach that he picked, that means you don't know as much as he does.
Right. And again, I'm going back to Jackson Dart here, Carl. Greg Roman is he's got a proven track record, right, as a guy who understands the run game and has had a lot of success over his career. But I look at Brian Callahan, who they just are hiring as the quarterback's coach, passing coordinator, whatever. And this is a guy that has worked closely with Peyton Manning and was the OC for Joe Burrow. So I love the fact that he's got a depth of experience and he's coming in and he's going to, he's not the head coach of the Giants. He is the quarterback's coach and he's part of this think tank. So I know a lot of people roll their eyes about Nagy. And we know Kansas City's offense this past year was not very good. And even last year, it wasn't great. It's Andy Reid's offense, right? Andy kind of calls the shots. So he was also the quarterback's coach in 22 when their offense was more prolific, right? So it's just all the things that he's soaked in, all the things that he's learned, all the things that he can impart upon Jackson Dart that has me excited. Sure. Remember, he was the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach in Kansas City when Alex Smith was lighting it up before Mahomes even arrived.
Sure.
So between Callahan, Roman, and the coordinator, Nagy, if you're a Giants fan, you have to be thrilled to know that my quarterback is going to have these guys with this experience designing offenses and figuring out ways to best use his skill set. And by the way, Nagy, when he was the head coach of the Bears, he had success there, not great success, and he was not a great head coach. But he also didn't have Patrick Mahomes or he didn't have Josh Allen. He had various quarterbacks that he had some level of success with them and took them to as far, or got the most out of them. Sure. So, again, my whole thing is let it all play out. But I think when I look at it and I understand these people's resumes, I met Nagy when I was doing arena football on NBC back in the early 2000s, and he was the quarterback for Doug Plank, who was the head coach of Arthur Blank's Georgia Force. So I sat in production meetings with Nagy, but hey, like I am not anybody that gets hired by Harbaugh. I'm like, all right, fine. He knows what he's doing, and I'm looking forward to kind of the next week, next week's show when we do that little film breakdown of, especially on the defensive side of the ball with Denard Wilson and some of the things that he does, and he's got a vast amount of experience as well. And I wouldn't just read it all off, what happened last year. It's ironic. His boss at the start of the 2025 season, Brian Callahan, is now a co-coach with him on the Giants staff, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to dig into a little bit of the film. I know Jahar Ward had a really great year. He speaks very highly of Denard Wilson.
I love that. Jihad Ward, when he was with the Giants, God, that guy was so good.
Yeah, Hottie loves him. I got a chance when I was in San Francisco, spoke with Mike Quick. We hung for a few minutes, and he's good friends with Denard. And they loved him in Philadelphia when he was on staff there. But Mike was giving me some insight on how he approaches the game and with players, and he's going to be a reflection of his head coach. He said there are things that are non-negotiable with him, and that's the part where I say when it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough for some of these players. Some things will not be negotiable. They've seen the look in your eye when you're saying, okay, I want out of this. So let me just grab my hamstring and see if I can get another week off.
Well, Carl, what did we spend a lot of December, especially after Dabes got fired, and we talked about thinking about moving forward? What was the overriding theme was standard. And we it's lip service. Like you heard players talking about we got to play to the standard. Dabes talked about this. Here's the standard, and you and I had this conversation. And for most of the players on the roster, they have no idea what the standard is. And for anybody that's been on the roster, like a Dexter Lawrence, who's been on the roster for a longer period of time, well, he's heard the word standard from 3 different coaches. Like what standard? Well, guess what? Now they got a head coach in there that knows what this has a standard,
and there won't be anything lost in translation.
Correct.
It'll be very
gray
clear.
area. There's no gray area of what the standard is. So, anything else you got? Oh,
no, I'm looking forward to next week.
I have one more question. My last question is: we started with the Super Bowl. I'm so happy that Julian Love got a pick. I'm so happy that Leonard Williams, keeping this back to the Giants, were able to get championship rings and be a part of a Super Bowl victory. Like Julian Love was one of my favorites.
Sure.
Whenever I see him, it's a warm handshake, and he's such a great guy. And he went through his trials and tribulations. Remember when he wasn't even playing his rookie year, and then he got his first career pick in his hometown of Chicago. And Leonard Williams, who's been a stud, it was a great trade by Gettleman. I'm going to say that. It was a hell of a trade by Gettleman, and he was a heck of a player for the Giants. And I was disappointed that they traded him, because that's a guy that helped give you an idea of what a standard should be like. But I'm so happy that both of those guys got championships.
Yeah, I am too. And they couldn't have come to better humans, good individual men. But we vent that, we let them go. But if they were on this team this year, they're not getting the Super Bowl.
No, they're not getting a ring this year. Even if they stayed, they
they're not
weren't getting
sniffing
a
the
ring.
playoffs. Even as good as they were as additions. Now, this defensive line would have been a lot better. They probably would have stopped the run with him and Dexter there, but they weren't getting the Super Bowl. So I'm happy that they're in situations, and that's kind of the blessing in disguise when guys change teams. They were able to get something out of it. So good for them. And, we'll see what the future holds for this new way of life for Giants players. They should aspire to be where their friends were, but they also understand, they're going to quickly understand, those that don't, that there ain't no shortcut to get to where Leonard Williams and Julian Love were, or Drake May and those guys. There ain't no shortcuts. It's painful, but you embrace it and you look forward to it every week. And they're going to find the guys that can do that. One more guy. Did I mention Jaylen Hyatt?
Yeah, you did. You mentioned him.
Yeah, he's got a clean slate too. I don't know what that's going to look like, right? But there's going to be Tyrone Tracy. I love the opportunity that he's going to have to pair with Cam Scatterboo. Productive guy. They're going to be, a segment of fans that are going to look at a shiny object and say, we could get the same from X, Y, and Z. Still on a rookie contract. Productive player. But the receiving core is where I think we're going to see what direction this team will go in, because you got Neighbors when Neighbors is back. But then you spoke about there's a fit, there's a role for guys, right? And if you look at what they asked Darius Slayton to do versus if he were a third receiver, or if he were a second or a 2A receiver that could play, the one and step up as a one when coverage dictates, or when defenses legislate against your number one guy. What does that look like, right? But you've got Wan'Dale Robinson. How do they look at him? There are a lot of other, I guess, concerns in terms of your roster building at that position, because it's not going to all stay the same. They won't run it back the way they have it, even with Malik Neighbors coming back. There's gonna be an upgrade to the position, and then as it falls out, you'll see who's left. But they're gonna upgrade one more time. They got to get another receiver, and then we'll see what's left from what's currently on the roster.
Right. Yeah, they're probably gonna have to draft one, but we don't know. I mean, we'll see. One just final thought. I was at so Rashean Mathis, who played is outstanding DB for the Jacksonville Jaguars for a bunch of years. He owns this really cool baseball facility down here called D-Bat. And when it rains or whatever, the teams all go inside and they go to this facility and they rent cages. So I'm walking in last week, and I see this big guy. His back is to me. Huge guy in this small cage area, and he's just throwing ground balls. Looks like to 7-year-olds or whatever, helping coach a baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, that guy looks familiar. So then he kind of turns to the side, and he's working with his team, and I'm getting my son to the hitting area or the pitching area where his coaches were. And I'm like, damn, that's Roy Robertson-Harris. So he kind of looks at me, but he's busy. But he's like, I kind of look, and I get Max to where. So then there was like a little break in the action with his team, and my son was going from pitching to where their hitting tunnels were. And I chatted with him for a little bit. We swapped numbers. That's one guy I hope is back. Now, he signed a 2-year deal, so he does have a contract for the 26 season. But, I mean, that guy is like a pro's pro. He's had an unbelievable career for a guy that, came in with very little fanfare. I kind of hope he's part of the solution moving forward because he's just a good dude.
Yeah, and he's a big, solid guy who plays the run well, and he had a really good year. I think Andre Patterson really got him playing into his size. You know, he wasn't trying to move like a little guy. He took advantage of his length and his size, and I think it really benefited the Giants. So we'll see how it goes. But this will be a fun 3 or 4 months before we head into training camp.
All right, Carl. By the way, is there any swag? Is there any product left over from your Super Bowl pop-up that people could go buy it, or is it just like the extra smalls that are left that nobody can finish?
Well, a lot. Well, the pop-up sold out, but starter.com, we do have product there, and then obviously, if you're a Seattle fan or you're a New England Patriot fan, there's plenty of product there too, but we have Super Bowl championship product on the site as well as some other really cool stuff on starter.com.
All right, so we're going to be back next week. We're going to do a little deep dive into the coordinators and even maybe some of the position coaches of like where they've come from, but definitely the 2 new coordinators. And Carl will give you a little breakdown of what he's seen that they've done in the past to try to help kind of get you familiar for what their MO is as far as what they like to do. And, it'll be a fun exercise next week, doing a little homework, getting ready for the show next week.
Yeah, it will be. I'm excited about it. I'll have this weekend to really dig in a bit. I'm going to get our producer, John Schmelk, to do his thing like he always does when we do the coach's tape. So I'll have some good stuff to dig through.
How do we like to end it?
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Bleav in Giants.